In this video, I'm going to take you behind the scenes as I work in Propellerhead Reason. I call this new video style Creative Live. Learn while watching me work and share my thought process at the same time. This video is part of my quick tutorial series on Propellerhead Reason. I have been thinking a lot about how to increase my workflow when working in Reason, and especially when starting new tracks from scratch. Going into the browser, searching for instruments, and then finding presets, it all takes a lot of time in my experience. So I decided to make use of the favorite list function in Reason to organize every kind of instrument in different lists. I have some notes prepared, so let's jump right into action. Alright, so here we are in Reason now, and I have my Grandmaster template project open. So let's open up the browser, click F3, and the only thing I have now is these folders where I will store my samples, my effects, and I also have my Combinator starters, which are basically empty Combinator patches with special graphics applied to each one of them. So let me quickly show you. If I drag one of these combinators, let's choose the drums and percussion, into the rack. This is an empty combinator, or it's just a preset patch actually, using a Kong, which I can easily exchange. And then my own special branded graphics so I can recognize the kind of device in my rack. And so I have different Combinator starting templates for backing sounds, which looks like this, basically mainly harmonies and chords. My master bass module, which looks like this. My master drive module, drums and percussion, which was this. Front sounds, which are basically leads and hooks and riffs. High drums and percussion, low drums and percussion, hits and accents. And then I also have one for my complete control keyboard, which looks like this. You can actually get all of these Combinator master templates for free, plus a lot of other resources I have created for Propellerhead Reason throughout the years. How? Well, simply sign up to my VIP email list on my website, and you will get my Reason Legends pack for free. Now it's time to add the specific favorite lists. So there are so many kinds of instruments you can choose to create a favorite list for and structure your sounds with. But how do you start? Well, I usually think that drums and bass comes first. So let's start with percussion. Click on the plus sign down here to create a new favorites list. And I want to use a short naming system, so let's use perc for short for percussion, underscore, and kits. So that is various drum kits, both electronic and acoustic drum kits in this favorite list. Alright, so those are the full kits. Now, next I want to have two lists. One for low percussion like bass, drums, and epic cinematic percussion, and one for higher percussion elements like hi-hats, tambourines, and cymbals and stuff like that. So let's click the plus again, use the same naming structure, perc underscore, and I'll call it simply low. And then another one, perc underscore high. So in the low percussion I will use cinematic toms and epic low percussion taikos and that kind of stuff. And in the high percussion list I will add cymbals, shakers, and, well, basically all the higher pitched percussion. So I only want to use 3 favorite lists for all the percussion instruments, the kits, the low and the high percussion, instead of doing like claps, kicks, snares and so on, because my full sample library will be in this folder here. So these will be the instrument lists, while the samples library will be the single individual samples that I can load into Kong or Battery or any other sample player. And as I said earlier, I usually structure everything in music starting with drums and percussion first, bass next, and then all the other instruments. So let's add a new favorite list, and this one is simple. Simply call it bass. Alright, so now it's time to make favorite lists for the various kinds of instruments. And in my experience, I often go back to piano as my main instrument in many of the tracks I produce. So I actually want to start by adding piano. So in this favorite list, I will add different kinds of piano VST instruments and sample libraries that I own, so I can find the specific style of piano that I want. I will even add like arpeggiated pianos in here. In case you didn't know, I am a huge fan of cinematic and orchestral music, because that is my epic journey. I want to be a professional music composer in the cinematic and soundtrack style of music. So the next favorite list for me will be orchestra. And that is patches that are like a mix of different orchestral instruments like brass and strings together, or big epic patches. Then I also want to have them separated in different sections like strings, which I believe is the main orchestral instrument, and then brass, and then wind, and let's see. No, that's about it for the orchestra, I think, because the orchestral percussion will go into one of these percussion favorite lists. I changed my mind now. I think I want to add another one for the orchestral section here, which is choirs, because I mainly use like cinematic choirs. So that will go there. And next it's time for other types of instruments. So the first one that comes to my mind is actually guitars. And let me think now. I actually think guitars will be better if it goes together with piano. So if I place it there, because many tracks actually use both piano and guitar, or one of these at least. Let's see. After that, I'm thinking about the style of sound and not particularly the instrument. So I actually want to use a favorite list for what I call plucks. So plucks is basically when you pluck a string on a guitar or a harp or even a violin. But it can also be synth sounds that are short and like you get this little pluck sound that kind of feels the same as a plucked string. So this favorite list is where I will store all those types of sounds. And the next type of sound I use often is pads. And pads are basically synths that sounds almost like a bed of strings, or perhaps even a bed of winds. These long pad-like sounds, often soft sounding, that works great as background track in your music. Let's see, what else do I have on my list here? Guitars, plucks. Yeah, so I could actually use a special favorite list for like ostinato, which is like staccato sounds, staccato strings often, that makes these cool patterns often used in cinematic music. But I don't know if I should use them, just place them into the strings favorite list. How would you do it? Because if I get too many favorite lists, it might not work as well, because then it is a mess anyway, almost like going into the browser and going into the instruments section here. Alright, so I was actually thinking about making a favorite list called Synth. What would go into the synth favorite list? I think it is too wide of a category because synths can sound in so many different ways. So that's why I thought it would be better to have like plucks, pads and the different kinds of sounds instead of simply calling it synth. So another one that I use often is these kinds of distorted and highly saturated sounds for leads or for a driving pulse, and I can basically call them dirty. That pretty much summarizes it in a short word. You know, now that I think about this, I think I do actually want to add a favorite list for ostinatos, because I use these sounds all the time and they are very much used in cinematic and soundtrack music. If you don't know what ostinatos are, it's basically the short staccato sounds often played by strings, but you can also use synths for these, that creates those driving pulse patterns that drives the track forward and creates energy. Let's see now. I also want to add like effects and soundscapes and textures. So let's create a new favorite list, call it FX, and let's see, risers and downers I use often, and instead of using simple samples, I do actually own sample libraries and instruments that I can use to create unique risers and downers. Then another kind of instrument effect I often use is what I call soundscapes, which basically are those beds of sounds, textures, atmospheres that basically fills up the background of the track and creates a mood. Alright, so that is everything I had in my notes. So this is my starting point for my favorite list organization of instruments. Remember, all my specific samples, like claps and snares, will go into a sample folder on my computer. So these will store instrument patches that I can use to simply drag and drop into a new project I'm starting. I will probably find more favorite lists to add as I start working with these favorite lists in an actual project. And if you have any suggestions yourself, please write in a comment below. When it comes to actually filling up these favorite lists with patches, I think I will do it in a live video on my Music Makers live show. So if you're interested in that, please follow my YouTube channel, subscribe, and you can also sign up to my VIP email list where I will give notifications when I will do a new live stream. Alright, now I want to hear from you. How do you organize your own favorite lists to boost your music making workflow in Reason? And do you have any specific tips to share? Write your comment below. I'm Mike, showing you behind the scenes of how I work in Propellerhead Reason, because you rock, my friends. My name is Mike, and I share my story and journey as a music composer and sound designer to inspire creative people like you. So click that subscribe button to gain music superpowers.